Hi, thanks for joining me today. I want to talk about houses. I've had quite the experience. I feel like I should give a little background on what's going on. Recently, I started looking for a house to buy, so I had a project to work on, something to do to kind of get me out of the house and give me something outside of work to work on. So I was thinking about it a lot, what I wanted to do, and I looked around the area I am in. So I'm outside of Boston, probably like 45 minutes, maybe 40 minutes outside of Boston. Um, but anywhere near the city or where I am, the prices are just crazy. Even though I'm doing okay financially, it just the cost is so much, and the house you get for the prices is okay, but to get something that's decent sized, it's very expensive. I started looking around. I know it's a bad time to buy houses. It's really difficult. The market's calmed down some, but when I started looking, it was clear it's still pretty crazy out there. Everything was pending that was any bit interesting, and anything that was new would be pending in less than a day, and the prices were just so much. So I looked around, like kept changing towns. I'd personally like to move closer to where I work, but that's closer to Boston, and the closer you get, the more expensive everything is. Even something like my house in the area that I want to move, or would want to move, is like double the cost of the house I have now in this area. I got pretty discouraged with that, and then I got thinking, usually for fun, like if I'm up visiting my parents, I'll pull up like Realtor and just see like something similar to my house back near my parents. It would be a third of the price. So the prices are nice. It's just the job opportunities are so much less. So I looked far and wide in the area and just couldn't find anything. So then I switched over to upstate New York where my parents live, and found that the prices were still a lot cheaper even with everything, but they are seeing the same market where things don't stay on very long and there's not much to choose from. I find one house that stands out, like price is right and the pictures look amazing, like it just needs updating in a few places and it'd be perfect. I talked to my parents, and I was going to be driving up there in a couple days, but I didn't want to wait and maybe lose out on the opportunity. In the process of reaching out to a realtor, the house had become pending, but the realtor said we could still look at it and then maybe make like a backup offer. I had my parents go and look. I said it needs a lot of work, and my parents have renovated 2 houses in my life, and so they know what they're talking about. So there was another house just nearby. They checked that one out. I did seriously consider what I could do with that house, and it did look interesting. But again, like the amount of work it needed, and the location didn't have a lot of room for fixing it up and selling it for more. So those 2 were a bust. I was going up in a couple days, so I was going to look into things a little more thoroughly once I got up there. In the meantime, the house came up that was probably like $30,000 less than the houses we've been looking at, and it looked like a really good deal. And again, the pictures looked okay, but there was some red flags, like if you see more pictures of the exterior than interior and missing rooms, it can be kind of a red flag. And the price. So the price was way less than anything else. So that's usually, a concern. So my dad went and looked at that, and oh boy, it was not good. So there was like exposed wiring and heat runs just out in the open, and very steep stairs, and it was just a mess. It was basically, you'd have to gut it to make it anything, because the stairs were in the kitchen, and I don't know, it was just really bad. Those 3 just not great. So then I make my way up there, and I get into town, I'm determined that, I'm going to find a place. The prices just are so much cheaper that the risk feels lower. So I reached out to the realtor. So I picked out 3 houses that I wanted to look at. Some of them were higher than I'd like, but I was hoping there'd be room to negotiate. A lot of them had been on the market for a while. The first house we looked at, we went in the basement first, found a crack on one of the walls in the basement, so that was a little concerning. Looking at the rest of the house, the pluses were that it was in a really good neighborhood, so fixing it up would potentially bring a lot of profit. The downside was it was pretty boring, like all the rooms are just basic squares, no moldings. I don't know, it was hard to envision how that could look like fixed up, and then the kitchen definitely was original, like 50s. So next house we went to was an old Victorian house, and I'm kind of a sucker for for some of like something old with character. So this house had lots of character. It wasn't boring with the square rooms. It had some pretty interesting floors, and I could just imagine, how nice it could be fixed up. So that one I really liked vision-wise, but the cost was more than I'd like. This last house looked okay in the pictures, but did look like it needed some work. But once I got in there, it has a really weird layout and would need rooms redone to make sense for the layout. And the kitchen needed to be redone, and that didn't really fit with the house, and it was sort of couldn't do open concept easily. That one was just way more work than I wanted to get into. So I looked at those 3, and out of those 3, there was 2 that were sort of an option. So that sort of did it for like what was available at the time in the town that my parents live. I started looking at a nearby town. I looked at 3 houses in that town that the prices were pretty reasonable on. When I looked at this first house, it looked okay from the outside. Kitchen need updated. The master bedroom was off the kitchen. The bathroom in the master had a door to the outside, which was a little weird. Going upstairs, the layout was really weird. Like, to get into one of the rooms, you went through another room. The height on the doorways was very short, like you'd have to duck. So that one just needed way too much work. And this next one, the price was really low, and it was clear it needed a lot of work. It looked like they had done some work on like the floors that would need to be redone. It was like the bargain cheapest flooring, and they put it on the entire like first floor. So looking at that one, it needed so much work. Even the roof, which was a metal roof, which tends to be a plus. There's a lot of snow up there, but this was patched, and it just was not great. And the workmanship in there was not good. So if the stuff you can see is not good, pretty scary to think what you'll find in the walls or anything like that. So that one I also passed on. And then this last one, the price was higher than I'd like. And when I looked at it, it needed a lot more work than I wanted. The master had like shag carpets and these weird built-ins, and that needed a lot of work, and there was a lot of water damage in the basement, so that was concerning. So for the price, just didn't make any sense. So I went through what I thought were good options in that town and didn't really find anything I liked. I still had the 2 options in this town my parents live in. So at this point, I really feel like I only have 2 houses that I'm interested in. The Victorian house I absolutely love, but because of location, it didn't have a lot of room for profit. Talking to the realtor, even if I did some major work, it probably would not fetch as much as the buying price and the renovation price. So that one was tough because I really liked the place, but the numbers weren't lining up. And then the other house I didn't find inspiring, so I didn't really have any clear vision for what I'd want to do with it. So I talked to my sister and asked if she'd come and take a look and see, what kind of ideas she would come up with. Talked to the realtor and my sister, and we went and looked at the Victorian house and the house that had the crack in the basement. Before going to the house, I did some research on fixing that crack. I was a little worried about when you went to sell it, if that looks bad, having a repaired basement. So when we looked at that house, I looked at it a little more carefully, and I found that the crack in the basement actually went all the way around. My sister had really good ideas of how to improve it, but it needed a roof and a lot of things that don't bring much profit in the end. I actually left there more discouraged because I thought I just had to fix one part of a wall and not all the walls in the basement, and then several of the other things I found were just not good. And then to get it to the way I'd like it, it would have been some major work. So we went to the Victorian house, and my sister had some great ideas there. She had thought of a way to add a mudroom. There's this really big bathroom with lots of wasted space that we could break up and have a laundry room, bathroom, and mudroom. The entrance from the driveway goes right into the kitchen, which then makes layout of the kitchen a little difficult. So you could take that door out and move it to this mudroom. So it just had some great ideas for it, and I walked around, looked more upstairs. I looked briefly, but it was nice to see it again, and I just came away liking it even more. But still, the numbers were tough. So there was one more house in town that I looked at. The price was more than I liked, but with the neighborhood, it could go for a lot more fixed up. In the pictures, it looked like they had done some work, but it might have been like on the cheaper side. So I thought all I had to really do is update the work that they had done, and maybe it'd be a good price. Once I got in there, the upstairs just needed to be totally redone. The floors were all sloped in weird directions, and there's no heat up there, so it was just way too much. I found one more house in a neighboring town. The pictures were a little concerning, but the price was okay, and I really liked the picture of the outside. When I got there, there's some interesting columns that I really liked, but I found that they were actually very cheaply done. And then looking inside, the layout was really bad and it needed tons of work. So I left there, not interested in the house. So at this point, I've considered 11 houses, pretty discouraged and don't know quite what to do. I really love the one house and I can just imagine it'd be interesting to live there, and I could have really interesting projects. But what concerned me is, like, am I liking it to like it and not because it makes sense? I made a offer for what I'd be comfortable with to see what they would say. They rejected the offer. At the end of the day, I decided it was worth trying to get. So I made another offer for $18,000 more. They had shown the house to two people the day before. That made me more anxious to want to buy the house. I feel like that was kind of telling of where I was at. Like, I really wanted the house. I don't know if it really makes sense, but I just have a feeling it's gonna work out well. So I decided to go up to what I thought they would accept in the end, and they did end up accepting that. So it was $25,000 more than my original offer. So after what felt like forever, the seller came back and accepted my offer. I'm excited and nervous about it. I don't know how the numbers work out, but I have a lot of ideas of maybe I'll use it as like an investment, and I'll fix things up in a way that I like, with an eye on, making sure it's good and resellable, but maybe not have it be like a short-term flip and make money. I might be a more long-term kind of work on it, sell it eventually. So that's where I'm at. I got a new house. I went to the bank, got a mortgage, and now I'm just waiting for everything on their end to get done. I'm really excited about all the projects I'm going to do. It's going to be like a 2-month wait though, so I plan to do as many pre-planning projects as I can to kind of come up with my game plan, what I'm going to do first, and I feel like that's a good use of my energies and my excitement for wanting the house to plan it. So yeah, that's my process of finding a house to buy. I'm very excited about what the future is going to bring, and I'm excited about all the videos I'll make in that new house. I look forward to talking to you soon. Thanks for joining me.
Ready? Ready?